The Galactic Empire had always considered itself superior. With their sprawling fleets of warships and advanced technology, they believed nothing could stand in their way. But one thing they never understood was the resilience of humanity. The Empire's latest mission, however, was to test that resilience in the most twisted way possible. On a distant human colony, nestled in the outer reaches of the galaxy, the Empire launched an unprovoked assault. The colony, known as New Eden, was peaceful, inhabited by families and young children, untouched by the horrors of war. The Empire viewed the serenity as a weakness, one they intended to exploit. Under the command of General Vorak, an alien military tactician, known for his cruelty, a battalion of Imperial soldiers descended on New Eden. Armed with the most advanced weaponry, they decimated the colony's defenses in minutes. The peaceful inhabitants stood no chance. In the heart of the chaos, 20 children, ranging in age from 5 to 12, were abducted. They were taken without mercy, their screams echoing through the silent night. The Empire's mission was clear: use these children as pawns in a psychological experiment to break the spirits of humanity. If they could crush the innocence of these children, they would prove that the human race was fragile and incapable of standing against the might of the Empire. The children were herded onto the Empire's flagship, the Dreadnought, and locked away in cold metal cells. Their young eyes, wide with terror, stared at the sterile walls, wondering if they would ever see their homes again. The Empire, with its overwhelming power, had made its move. The children were nothing more than tools, objects in a game they could not understand. Back on Earth, the news of the attack spread like wildfire. The United Earth Forces, UEF, a global alliance of Earth's strongest military factions, were in turmoil. The children's capture was not just an act of war. It was an attack on humanity's heart. Every parent, every soldier, every human who heard the news felt the sting of the Empire's cruelty. General Althea, commander of the UEF's most elite unit, was one of the first to hear about the tragedy. She stood in her command center, the cold blue light of the display panels reflecting in her eyes as the news report flashed across the screen. Her face hardened and a deep, furious silence filled the room. Althea was no stranger to war. She had seen the horrors of battle, the losses that shattered even the strongest souls. But these children, they were different. They represented the future of humanity, the generation that would carry the torch of freedom and hope. And now, they were in the hands of the most dangerous empire in the galaxy. "They've gone too far," Althea muttered under her breath, her fingers tightening around the armrest of her chair. In that moment, something inside her snapped. The Empire had underestimated humanity's strength before, but this time it was personal. She turned to her second-in-command, Colonel Drake, who had been watching her carefully. "Prepare the squadron. We'll get those kids back. This is no longer just a mission. It's a statement. Humanity will not bow." As Althea's orders were carried out, she stood in front of the UEF flag, her mind racing. She knew the risks, the impossibility of the task ahead. The Empire had a fleet of warships, and their flagship was a fortress. But Althea was not one to back down. Her unit, known for its brutal efficiency and unparalleled combat skills, was humanity's best hope. If there was any chance to save the children, it was going to take everything they had. The time for diplomacy and negotiations was over. The Empire had crossed a line, and there would be no mercy in the battle to come. Althea's heart burned with the promise of revenge, but it was also filled with something else, a fierce, unshakable belief that humanity's spirit could never be broken. In the cold silence of space, the Dreadnought sailed onward, unaware of the storm that was about to come for them. General Althea sat in the war room, the soft hum of the advanced technology surrounding her as she watched the tactical map of the Dreadnought. The map was a sea of red dots representing Imperial forces, with the flagship's location at the center. Her hand hovered over the holographic table, fingers tracing the lines that marked the enemy's fleet and defensive positions. Her mind worked like a machine, calculating every move, considering every risk. The children were being held in the Dreadnought's lower holding cells, a well-guarded part of the ship, located deep within its core. It would be nearly impossible to breach. But Althea knew that impossible missions were the ones she lived for. As the map shifted, revealing the ship's internal layout, Althea spoke, her voice steady and commanding. "We have one shot at this," she said, addressing her team, a group of elite soldiers who had been by her side through countless battles. "We need to hit them fast and hard. The dreadnought is well defended, but it has weak points. It's the Empire's pride, and pride always leads to arrogance." Colonel Drake, her right-hand man, nodded. "They're expecting a frontal assault. It's the most obvious strategy. We'll use that to our advantage." Althea smirked, a glimmer of ruthlessness in her eyes. "Yes, we'll give them the fight they're expecting. But that's not the real mission. Our real goal is to get to the children. We're not going to waste time with their soldiers. We're going to strike fast, extract them, and get the hell out. No heroics. We're not here to win a war. We're here to bring the children home." The plan was simple, but its simplicity was its strength. Althea's team would infiltrate the Empire's flagship using stealth fighters. They would disable the Dreadnought's primary defense systems long enough to board the ship. The fighters would create a distraction, drawing the Empire's forces to the surface and giving her squad a chance to slip in unnoticed. Althea had always believed in misdirection. The Empire's warships were massive, but their arrogance left gaps. They relied too heavily on their technology, thinking that sheer power could deter any enemy. She knew better. The Empire had never faced a force like hers before. "We'll infiltrate through the lower docking bay," Althea continued, pointing to a hidden entry point on the ship. "It's poorly guarded, underestimated, just like us. We'll use it to slip past their outer defenses. Once we're inside, we'll neutralize the guards and secure the children." One of her soldiers, Sergeant Riva, raised a question. "How do we deal with General Vorik? If he's there, he'll fight us to the end." Althea's expression hardened. "Vorik is a beast, but he's also predictable. He'll be at the heart of the action, overseeing the containment of the children. He'll underestimate our approach. That will be his mistake." Her mind flashed back to the first time she encountered the Empire's forces in battle. How they had killed her family, how they had stolen her innocence, and how, in the end, they had underestimated her. She had sworn vengeance then. This mission was more than just a rescue. It was a reckoning. As Althea continued to finalize the details of the plan, she couldn't help but feel the weight of what was at stake. The children weren't just soldiers in a war. They were symbols of humanity's future, its strength and its hope. If she failed, not only would she lose a chance to save them, but the Empire would have succeeded in breaking something far more precious: humanity's will to fight. "Remember," Althea said, locking eyes with each of her soldiers, "this is not just another mission. This is a fight for everything we are. We're fighting for these children, for the people we've lost, and for every human who refuses to bow to the Empire." Her team responded in unison, their voices filled with conviction. "For humanity." "Exactly." Althea smiled, her voice filled with purpose. "We will bring them back, and when we do, the Empire will learn that they can't break us. We are humanity, and we will rise." With the plan set, Althea's squad began their final preparations. The next few hours would be a blur of tension, quick decisions, and a quiet resolve. The mission ahead would be their most dangerous yet, but for Althea, it was personal. There was no turning back now. The children were in the hands of monsters, and Althea would burn the galaxy down to get them back. The mission was underway. The UEF stealth fighters zipped through the cold expanse of space, cloaked from the Empire's radar, their engines humming with the power of high-tech thrusters. General Althea and her squad sat in tense silence, their eyes focused on the ever-approaching Dreadnought, the massive flagship of the Galactic Empire. The cold, sterile vastness of space surrounded them, but inside the fighters, the atmosphere was charged with purpose. Althea's mind raced, calculating their every move. Time was against them. The longer they stayed in the Empire's territory, the more likely it was that the Dreadnought's sensors would detect their presence. Every second counted. The squad's task was simple: infiltrate, extract, and escape. But there was no room for error. Failure wasn't an option. Not when 20 innocent children were in the hands of an empire that didn't care about mercy or compassion. The Dreadnought grew larger on the screen. Althea's heartbeat quickened, not out of fear, but anticipation. Her team was ready. They had trained for moments like this. As they approached the docking bay, Althea keyed the command for the decoy drones. "Deploy the drones now," she ordered calmly. The small, agile drones shot out from the fighters, creating a disturbance on the dreadnought's outer defenses. The Empire's automated guns responded instantly, locking onto the decoys, thinking they were the real threat. The moment the Empire's focus shifted to the drones, Althea's squad made their move. They shot into the lower docking bay at full speed, their stealth ships barely skimming the edges of the docking structure. With a single command, Althea initiated the bay's access codes, overriding the security systems with a series of precise hacks. The doors groaned open, and they slid into the heart of the dreadnought. The stealth fighters powered down, and the squad exited quickly, cloaked in dark combat suits designed to blend with the ship's shadowy corridors. The dreadnought was a labyrinth of steel and technology, corridors lit with harsh, fluorescent lights that felt sterile and cold. But Althea's squad moved like shadows, their every step deliberate. They encountered little resistance at first. Most of the Empire's forces had been drawn away by the decoys. The squad moved quickly, neutralizing a few patrols with silent efficiency, making their way toward the cells where the children were held. As they neared the containment area, Althea felt a deep pang of worry. Time was running out. They could already hear the sound of Imperial soldiers responding to the disturbance. The clock was ticking. "I'll take the left side," said Sergeant Riva, her voice low but clear. "You take the right." Althea nodded. "Keep it quiet. We can't afford to make noise." They advanced carefully, moving through the shadows like specters. When they reached the first door, Althea's eyes locked on the security panel. A quick sequence of keystrokes, and the door slid open with a soft hiss. They're inside the small, sterile cell with the children, pale, trembling, but alive. Althea's heart twisted at the sight of them. Their wide, fearful eyes locked onto her, as if she were some kind of savior. They had been through so much already, but they were still there, still holding on to hope. "Don't worry," Althea whispered, stepping forward. "We're here to take you home." One of the older children, a girl no older than 12, stepped forward. Her voice was barely a whisper, but Althea heard it clearly. "Are you really going to get us out?" Althea smiled, though it was filled with sadness and fury. "Yes. Stay close, and we'll get you out of here." As the children gathered near her, ready to escape, a sudden, booming voice echoed through the hall, cutting the silence like a blade. "You think you can just walk in and take them from me?" Althea turned swiftly, her hand reaching for the weapon at her side. Standing in the doorway of the containment area was General Vorik, his alien features twisted into a sneer. He was massive, towering over the human soldiers, dressed in the menacing black armor of the Empire. His eyes glowed with a cruel, confident light, the kind of look that only someone who believed they were invincible could have. "You are fools," he hissed. "You think your pitiful attempts will change anything? I have crushed your kind for years. Your species has no place in this galaxy." Althea's lip curled into a grim smile, her eyes narrowing in disdain. She stepped forward, raising her weapon. "You've never understood us, Vorik. You think you can break us. You think we'll fall to your cruelty. But you've underestimated humanity's will to fight." The tension in the room was palpable, the two enemies facing each other in a standoff. Vorik's smug expression faltered for just a moment, the first crack in his confidence. Althea saw it, a flicker of doubt. "You think you've won?" Vorik scoffed. "You've lost before you've even begun. The Empire is eternal." Althea's laughter rang out, sharp and defiant. "The only thing that's eternal is humanity's will to survive. And you, Vorik, have just made the biggest mistake of your life." She raised her weapon, and before Vorik could react, the first shots rang out, followed by an explosion of light and sound. The fight had begun. The room exploded in chaos. General Vorik's voice was drowned by the crackle of weapons fire, the blinding flash of plasma bolts lighting up the dimly lit corridor. Althea's heart pounded in her chest, but her hands remained steady. The children, terrified but resolute, huddled close behind her as the squad moved into position, weapons aimed at the oncoming Imperial soldiers. The battle was intense. Vorik's soldiers, though numerous, were unprepared for the speed and ferocity of Althea's team. They had expected an overwhelming force, but instead, they were met with a tactical brilliance that cut through their ranks like a knife through butter. Althea's squad was trained for moments like this. Quick, efficient, and ruthless. They moved like shadows, neutralizing threats with swift precision. But the real threat still loomed ahead, General Vorik himself. The alien general stepped forward, his massive frame nearly filling the doorway. His voice was like thunder, booming with arrogance and anger. "You think you can defeat me, human? You are nothing. I have crushed entire worlds. You will fall just like all the others." Althea's laugh was sharp and mocking. "You've lost, Vorik. The moment you touched these children, you sealed your fate." Without warning, Althea lunged at him, her combat knife gleaming in the dim light. She was fast, her movements precise and calculated. Vorik tried to strike back with his energy blade, but Althea anticipated the move. She ducked under his swing and drove the knife deep into his side. For a moment, Vorik faltered, a growl of pain escaping his lips. But he was not done yet. He retaliated with vicious roar, his glowing eyes narrowing in fury. He swung again, this time with brutal strength, but Althea was already moving, rolling out of the way and drawing her sidearm. "You're not the first tyrant I've faced, Vorik, and you won't be the last," Althea said through clenched teeth, taking aim at his exposed side. Her shot rang out with perfect precision, striking him in the shoulder. Vorik staggered back, clearly wounded, but he wasn't finished yet. His body glowed brighter, his alien physiology absorbing the damage and powering through the pain. With a snarl, he raised his arm to strike once more. But before he could react, a sharp cry from one of the children interrupted the standoff. "Look, there's a way out." Althea's eyes snapped at the child, who was pointing toward a narrow maintenance tunnel at the far end of the room. The squad had already cleared the immediate area of threats, but Vorik still stood as a looming danger. Time was running out. Althea knew what she had to do. She turned back to her team, signaling them to move the children toward the escape route. "Move them now. I'll handle this." The soldiers immediately responded, ushering the children toward the exit as Vorik roared in fury. But Althea was already in motion, drawing her blade once more and charging forward with all the fury and strength she had left. Vorik's energy blade came down in a devastating arc, but Althea met with her own, the clash of weapons ringing out. She fought with everything she had, channeling the anger and pain of years of war into every strike. She could feel the weight of the galaxy's oppression in every swing of her blade, the cries of the innocent fueling her determination. Finally, with a skillful move, she disarmed him. Vorik's energy blade flew from his grasp and clattered the floor. Before he could react, Althea thrust her combat knife forward, aiming for his chest. But instead of ending the fight in a killing blow, she paused, her eyes meeting his. "You'll never understand what it means to fight for something greater than yourself, Vorik," she said, her voice low and filled with fury. "You'll never understand the strength of humanity, and that's why you'll lose." With a final twist of her wrist, Althea struck, incapacitating him with a quick, precise blow to the pressure point. Vorik fell to his knees, his strength finally failing him. As the Empire's general crumpled to the ground, Althea turned and sprinted toward the maintenance tunnel. She was out of breath, adrenaline pumping through her veins, but the mission wasn't over yet. She still had one last task, to get the children to safety. The squad had already reached the tunnel, and the children were nearly through. Althea's heart skipped a beat as she saw them safely out of danger. The Empire had lost, and humanity had won. As the last of her team entered the tunnel, Althea looked back at the dreadnought. The ship that had once seemed invincible, now nothing more than a wrecked symbol of the Empire's arrogance. The children would be safe. Humanity would live to fight another day. Epilogue. Back on Earth, the children were reunited with their families. Their faces were filled with awe and gratitude as they saw their rescuers, heroes who had given everything to ensure their safety. General Althea, though exhausted, watched in the shadows, her heart swelling with pride. She had saved them, but more importantly, she had shown the galaxy that humanity's spirit could never be broken. In the month that followed, The story of the rescue spread throughout the galaxy, and the Empire's once unshakable dominance began to crumble. Althea had become a symbol of defiance, a living legend who had proven that no matter the odds, humanity could rise, united and strong. And as for the children, they carried the lessons of their ordeal with them, growing into the future leaders of Earth. The future was theirs, and it would be a future built on resilience, courage, and the unshakable belief that humanity, no matter how much it was tested, would never fall.